Let us turn to page number 266. So we have just started the Samucheda Sankaha Vibhaga, and we've discussed the bonds and the floods last time. So we will continue from verse 7, clingings. Is it verse 7? Ah, yes.
Bante, it's from Bodily Knots.
Bodily
Number
knots.
6. Yes.
Lovely. Bodily knots, verse 6. Let us chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Bodily knots. 4 bodily knots. 1, the knot of covetousness, the bodily knot of ill will, the bodily knot of adherence to rites and ceremonies, the bodily knot of dogmatic belief that this alone is the truth. The bodily knots are so called because they tie the mind to the body, or the present body to bodies in future existence. All right. Here, the term body applies to both the mental and physical body in the sense of an aggregation. Of the 4 knots, covetousness means craving or greed, which pulls beings towards desirable objects. Ill will is identical with the Chetasika hatred, which is manifested as aversion towards undesirable objects. Adherence to rites and ceremonies is a belief that the performance of rituals constitutes the means to liberation. Dogmatic belief is a firm conviction that one's own view is the only truth and that all other views are false. These last 2 bodily knots are both aspects of the Chetasika wrong view. When we refer to a gantha, which is a knot, right? A gantha can be taken to also explain as to why humans often are again reborn as humans, or linking to the type of consciousness that they believe or that they have at the last moment. For example, a human would rarely, or sense sphere being would rarely be born out of the sense sphere. Why? Because of the knots that we create within our life in adherence to what the sense sphere holds, or what the sense sphere has, in a way, how we have knotted ourselves onto what is within the sense sphere. Right? Within the sense sphere. Knots also bring about an aspect where we will be unable to see a way, a life beyond the knot. Meaning, if it is hatred, or if it is delusion, or if it is the belief of rites and rituals, we will not be able to see beyond that. We will be held with that specific hindrance, because that is how a knot essentially works. It holds our mind down to that specific knot that has arisen in our minds. For example, when a person is full of hate, the last thing that will arise in the person's mind is metta. When greed is within the person's mind, the last thing which will arise within the person's mind is to let go. They do not see an end, or rather, they do not want to see an end to the greed, nor would they think about something which is completely the opposite of greed, which is letting go. Right? Almost like a prapancha, where it explains you pull the prapancha out, you pull it out, but the moment that you let go, the prapancha goes back and sticks. In the same way, the knot keeps the mind engaged into that specific knot which arises. Do you understand? That is what a gantha is. Right? That is what a gantha is. Now, we can also take examples such as when we go through issues, and with the issue that is in our life, the turbulence of life, hate can be there, different levels of hate. How do I get away from this? The anxiety which arises from that hate, all of that which is connected to the akusala chittas as well as the akusala chetasikas. Now, the person does not see a way out. But for the person who does not, or maybe a friend who is an onlooker, or a person external to you, external to the issue, who is an onlooker, might look at the issue and say, oh, you just have to do this. But that becomes something which is very difficult for our minds to come around, because our mind is at that moment within that knot or knotted. Right? That is what essentially a gantha is. Understood? Right? Okay. 7. Clingings.
Bhante.
Oh, yes.
Question. It says the gantha is actually tying the mind to the body also.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that means there's a relationship between mind and the body.
Absolutely.
Regarding this gantha, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So how that happens is, for example, again, if you take the sensual pleasure, right? Let's take the greed, the gantha of greed.
Yeah.
When the greed arises, the experience of greed only arises through the body. And the mind is dependent upon the body.
I see.
Right? Now,
Yeah.
if it is hate, the infatuation with the hate that the mind has, that hate is only experienced through the medium of the body.
Body, okay.
Right? Hence, binding those together. Right? Hence, binding those together. Now, for example, earlier, got fatter, isn't it? But if you take, for example,
yeah.
You remember when we were speaking about rebirth, we were talking about a fish who has no clue about the existence of humans. Let's say a fish who lives in the dark, dark ocean. Now, this fish, within its samsara, the fish might have merit to come out one day into being a human being. However, that fish will not automatically die and become a human being. That is not going to happen. The fish will slowly have to come to take a human as an object to be able to become a human being, to grow closer to the human world. Right? Why? Because at that moment, without that external object now bringing that inspiration to mind, the fish will always be bounded to that existence, to thinking that this is the only thing that is.
Yeah.
Right? This is the only thing that is. Just as, for example, when we are so infatuated with the sensual pleasures, we think the experience and the enjoyment of the pleasures is the greatest thing on this planet. But those who are wiser, those who have cultivated their minds, say this is the least of the pleasures when it comes in comparison to the divine pleasures that we could experience. Now see, that emotional bond that we create with that existence, with the Aramana, with the body being here, the medium of all experience, the medium through which we experience. Hence, automatically, the mind and the body comes together and is bound together. Right? And that happens a lot. For example, the moment that if we are diagnosed with cancer, our whole life turns upside down. Right? Almost in a way that we forget, okay, the body is sick, but the mind is not sick. Right? If we lose a loved one that we really cared about, or if our house burns down, which is the place that we live, our life turns upside down because of the bondage to that physicality. Yeah, that is what the knot speaks about there. Yeah, understood? Any questions, anyone?
Bhante,
Yes, Noel.
we came across the word craving in this chapter. And craving, I understand, is threefold: Kama Tanha, Bhava Tanha, and Vibhava Tanha. What exactly is Vibhava Tanha?
Vibhava Tanha, Kama Tanha, Bhava Tanha, Vibhava Tanha. Vibhava Tanha is the craving that we have in forms of, how can we say? In the form of annihilation is the word. How would we explain annihilation? Annihilation here, Kama Tanha is the craving that one would have to experience the sensual pleasures. Bhava Tanha is in the form of becoming. Vibhava Tanha is the craving that we have to ending. This role that we sort of see in our life in terms of becoming. But the thing is, Vibhava Tanha is in no way then, people might say it's okay, we want to attain Nibbana, right? Which is the ending of it all, which is annihilation. It is not. Annihilation view and Nibbana is two different things. Annihilation view is when a person craves to end it without the wisdom aggregate now being fulfilled. Do you understand? Right? Without the wisdom aggregate being fulfilled, if one is now craving to end this cycle, then that falls under Vibhava Tanha. But in Nibbana, just as we mentioned in the earlier chapters, mundane people cannot take Nibbana as object. So it is only with the meditational wisdom, cultivation and development that one will, with wisdom, come into terms with the attainment of Nibbana, not by saying, oh, I want to end it all, I want to end it all, I want to finish all of this. Do you understand?
Ante, excuse me, please, for intervening.
Yes.
Annihilation, according to my knowledge of having heard it, is a destruction of everything. I don't know about Abhdhamma, but the general meaning, as far as I have heard, I may be wrong, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is. Vibhava Tanha. Now people without practice, I mean, you hear a lot of Buddhists saying this because we are so infatuated with the word Nibbana without practice. You know, we hear so many Buddhists saying it, oh, I want to end samsara, I want to end samsara, I want to end samsara, but no practice, right? Not even a clear idea of what shunyata is. All of that falls under Vibhavatana, right? Because then that becomes something, that becomes an infatuation of mind, which is unattainable to the mind. Now it falls under ditthi. With the tanha, annihilation view, remember, it is one of the 60 odd wrong views, right? It's one of the 60 odd wrong views. That is the need or the view that you can sort of, you know, you're saying it out, I want to end it, but no wisdom, no cultivation of meditation, nothing of the sort to truly pronounce it's in its true essence. That falls under Vibhava Tanha. Do you understand?
But in other words, those who do not believe in rebirth, strongly not believe in rebirth, they have the tendency of Vibhava Tanha, because they think that it's the end of everything when you die, right?
Yes, that is annihilation.
That's also explained in the Brahmajala Sutra also.
Yes.
Under 60 or 62.
It is a part of the 62 types of wrong view, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it comes, that specific part comes specifically under the annihilation view.
Okay.
Annihilation view, as I do remember off the top of my head, is the view that everything comes to the end after death. Yes.
Yeah.
That everything comes to end.
Yeah.
Everything comes to end after death. Here, annihilation view. Here, annihilation view, or Vibhava Tanha, is a greed that one has to ending it all, right?
Yeah.
And remember, that is also if, for example, our friend Chamari can explain it as a psychologist, I think even far better, how that sort of a view can be can bring about devastating results to a human's mind when a person wishes to end it all without the wisdom attribute supporting that that theory. You know what I mean? Because essentially we have reasons under the practice, we have reasons under the Dhamma, we have contemplation, we have the Dhamma, we have the meditation, the Vipassana, through which we attain Nibbana. It is not by just saying that we want to end it, that we attain Nibbana. Yeah, so that is Vibhava Tanha. I hope, Noeline, it is clear. Yeah, all right. Moving on. Now, okay, before we move on, adherence to rites and ceremonies is a belief that the performance of rituals constitutes the means to liberation. Now, I think this might be something important for us to talk about as well, because I say it so often, isn't it? You know, you guys might be quite annoyed with me also sometimes for repeating it so many times. Right? Now here, the best sutra that we have to sort of go through to truly understand this is, of course, the Kalama Sutra and its commentary with the Kalama Sutra. Here, what is a rite? Usually it would be translated as ritual, but here they have used ceremonies, right? Now here it mentions, if it mentions a very important part, is the belief that the performance of rituals constitutes the means to liberation. Prayer, all the different pujas that we might do, all of that, without the attribute of Yoniso Manasikara, falls under this category. Right? So anything, just take by scope, anything that a Buddhist does, if there is no Yoniso Manasikara, it all falls under Silabbata Paramasa, which is the adherence to rites and ceremonies or rites or rituals. Do you understand? Yeah. Do you have any questions about it? Actually, in today's time, even danas can fall into this. Right? Because even danas can fall into this, because danas have also come into a position where we look at it, or some might look at it, not as a means of letting go of what it truly should be, but rather a instating of or practicing of our culture. Yeah, dana is not culture. It should never be culture, right? Although we have strong links in our culture to dana, it should never be the purpose. And then we find all of those things coming down to Silabbata Paramasa. This Silabbata Paramasa, why does it matter so much? Right? Why does it matter so much? Why is it so important that it is also mentioned within the first category or group of hindrances that will be got rid of from the first level of sainthood? I mean, it is something quite important, because this is this is essentially the disrespecting of mind, right? The disrespecting of human intelligence and of the mind. And I think if we all think about it for a moment, you then get why it is that disrespecting of the human mind and intelligence. Just as Buddhas during the time of Bodhisattvas, they will break all of the precepts except one, Musavada. Bodhisattvas in certain circumstances may break any one of the precepts except Musavada. Why? Because it is through true speech that Buddhas do what they come into this world to do, to teach the truth. So lying is integrally a disrespecting of the mind of a Buddha, or what the duty of the Buddha essentially is. Do you understand? Right? In that manner, Silabbata Paramasa is in a way disrespecting your human intelligence and your humanhood, if I'm supposed to say it in that manner. So we do not do anything without that sense of Yoniso Manasikara, right? Without that sense of Yoniso Manasikara. And that is quite important, right? Dogmatic belief is a firm conviction. And really, in today's time, we might not see it much. But if we remind ourselves the history that we have learned with, of course, our religion as well as other religions, of how dogmatic belief led to so much of pain and hurt in the world, from the tasks of the crusaders, from the falsified witch hunters, everything was led because of dogmatic belief. because of dogmatic belief. Women who stood up in the times, powerful women who stood up at the times that the Crusaders were alive and were quite powerful, were burnt at the stake as witches, not because of anything, but the fact that these women who showed power within society were seen as, something that threatened toxic masculinity in the world. Right? Now, all of that felt under dogmatic belief. And, knowing things like that really puts into perspective, the importance of certain things of this sort. Right? All right, so let's move on. Verse 7, clingings. 4 clingings. Upadana. Clinging.
Bhante, you miss ill will. The bodily knots of ill will.
Bodily knots of ill will.
That's the second one.
Yes, the bodily knot of ill will. I thought that was clear with my explanation to you with the greed and the ill will. Okay, I'll do it. Bodily knot of ill will. I'm silly. Bodily knot of ill will. Bodily knot of ill will. Okay, so the bodily knot of ill will here. How does ill will form a knot when ill will essentially is friction and also the role of pushing away, right? Here, we are not talking about an essential attraction. We are talking about an adaptation of behavior, an adaptation of mind within a certain frame. Within a certain frame. This is not anything to do with attraction. Attraction has nothing to do in this section. A knot is not an attraction. It is an adaptation.
Yeah.
Right? It is an adaptation. Right? Just imagine, there is one herb. There is only one herb that is used in Sri Lanka for cooking, for example. We probably would use that herb in everything, like coconuts. How many things do we make from coconut? Right? In the same manner, right? In the same manner, we adopt this frame into the processes that we entangle ourselves into, right? And because of that, we can't see beyond. We are so attracted and attached to the coconut that we fail to see that there might be other resources that might be even better. It's something of that sort. Do you get what I mean? Right? In the same manner, so here the bodily knot of ill will, when one has ill will, one also wants to pronounce ill will. You don't have ill will and just keep it to yourself. If you have ill will, you will probably put it out through body, speech, and speech. It will grow. That again is done through the medium of the body, right? And then we adopt that into the way that our mind then works within that framework. Right? For example, it's like sometimes, tough racists who would not be able to sort of see beyond that color of skin, or who will not see beyond that color of skin, although there might be so much of evidence in the world, there might be so much of peace within certain area, still they might want to stick to it. That is clearly a knot, you see. Right? The inability to see beyond that knot.
Yeah.
Okay? Is that clear?
Bante, ill will is hatred, isn't it?
Hatred. But remember, look at the Pali word. What is it? Vyapada. Vyapada. What are the other words that we know for ill will, for the hatred? We know dosa. We know vyapada. Patiga. What else do we know? Yeah, those are basically right. Now, when we say dosa, dosa is very general, right? It talks about it actually attributes to any level of hatred that we could possibly have. Vyapada is a much more stronger word for dosa, right? Vyapada is a much more stronger word. It is like tanha and upadana, right? Tanha and upadana. Vyapada, you can have a person who's mad at you, then you can have the type of person who will come at you like a snake who will follow you wherever you go. Right?
Okay.
It is more sinister. Vyapada is more sinister. Right? Here, ill will, actually, ill will is not the best word to sort of translate what vyapada is, but there is a attribute of the need to cling on to that mentality, right? Do you understand? It's not a type of hate that you will feel and just let go. There is sort of a grappling in vyapada.
It's not incidental.
It's not
actual. It's not incidental, but it's sort of you keep on doing.
Yeah.
Like your neighbor, say you might have a bad neighbor, he hates you. So he will not stop hating you. Almost like that, right?
Yeah. Yes, Pushpa.
Bante, Krodaya, Vairaya, where does that fit in?
Vairaya, my Sinhala is not, I won't be able to tell you exactly. But Krodaya, Vairaya, what is usually the translation of Vyapada in Sinhalese?
Vaira is hatred, Bante, I think.
Vaira is hatred.
Yeah.
Okay. Vaira is hatred. Vyapada මොනවද කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන්?
What is the word?
Vyapada. Any ideas? So I'm not able to answer your question exactly, Pushpa, because I don't know the levels of those words in Sinhala. But I'm sure you could Google it on the Pali dictionary and you will find. What are the two words? Vaira and Krodaya.
Krodaya.
I feel like Krodaya is surely much, much more powerful than Vaira. Isn't it?
Because Bante, when they say Vaire no sansinde, so translated like hatred by hatred never ceases. No?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
What is a Pali for that? Nahi verena. Vera.
That's Vaire.
Vaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, Pushpa, I'm sorry, we can't give an effective answer, but
That's okay.
you have to
We
ask.
work on it. Yeah.
Or everyone here is a coconut, you see. You have to ask some proper signal.
Mante, here we have quite a number of terminology like ill will and aversion.
Aversion.
Ill will, aversion. and hatred.
Yeah, aversion is patiga.
Yeah.
Aversion is patiga, hatred is dosa, and ill will would be what we discuss now.
Vyapada, which is yeah.
Yeah, much more sinister. All right, so let's move on. Right, clinging, shattaru upadana. Clinging to sensual pleasures, clinging to wrong views, clinging to rites and ritual, rites and ceremonies, clinging to doctrine of self. Right, clinging to doctrine of self. Of the four kinds of clinging, the first may be understood as intensified craving for sensual pleasures. Intensified. Right? Kama upadana. Though the commentaries point out that this kind of clinging can also be understood more broadly as craving for any of the things of the world, clinging to wrong views is an adaptation of any of the morally pernicious views such as nihilism, fatalism, etc. Or any of the speculative views about the eternal or non-eternal existence of the world. Eternal or non-eternal existence of the world. Now, when we, okay, let's read to the whole paragraph. Clinging to rites and ritual ceremonies is the wrong view that the performance of rites and rituals or undertaking of ascetic practices and related observances can lead to liberation. Clinging to a doctrine of self is an adaptation of personality view. Clinging to a doctrine of self is an adaptation of personality view, sakkaya ditthi. The identification of any of the five aggregates as a self or the accessories of a self. The sutras mention 20 types of personality views. These are obtained by considering each of the five aggregates in four ways. Thus, one regards materiality as self or self as possessing materiality, or materiality as in self or self in materiality. The same is repeated with respect to feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. The clinging to sense pleasures is the manifestation of greed. The other three clingings are modes of Chetasika view. Oh, I'm sorry, Chetasika, wrong view.
Wrong way.
Wrong view. Chetasika, wrong view.
Wrong view.
Ditti.
Mana dittida?
Michya ditti.
Michya ditti, okay.
Of the four kinds. Okay. So here, upadana, intensified craving for sense pleasures. Right? Though the commentaries point out that this kind of clinging can also be understood more broadly as craving for anything in the world, clinging to wrong views is the adaptation of any. Now here, clinging essentially, because clinging as a Chetasika, it is so interlinked to our consciousness, it essentially does not mean that it needs to be there in the process of involving ourselves with the object of a world, of the world. It is in coming to that understanding between these two extremes, where an object has to be investigated with craving, and an object can be experienced fully without craving. In balancing this understanding is where we are trying to achieve, coming into that understanding between these two, within that spectrum of experience. Do you understand? Right? But something which hinders that is the underlay of upadana, which governs the mundane man's consciousness or consciousness stream. Right? Again, just like any addiction, we think if a person is addicted to smoking, the person thinks, I can't go on, or I will not be able to deal with my stress without a cigarette. If a person is addicted to alcohol, the person might think, I can't get over my stress without, or I can't enjoy myself with my friends without a drink, right? Like every form of addiction, we say that we need it to feel good or feel better or feel something. In the same way, craving goes about in a same fashion where it suffocates the person in a way that you feel that you can't do without it. Now, for example, you have with relationships, you know, sometimes people believe in certain relationships there are no troubles. You know, sometimes it feels a bit boring, you know, a bit you know, when everything is cool and quiet and, you know, there is no sort of triumphs in a relationship, it's almost as if other Kevin again. You know, it gets boring, you see. You know, sometimes it actually people do, you know, people enjoy a little bit of sort of, you know, scolding here and there, arguments here and there, you know, even if we can live without it. You know, it just seems sometimes it feels, I mean, people do complain about it, you know, it's a bit boring, they say, you know, because there's no, you know, we get on so well, it's a bit boring sometimes, I would like to argue, you know. And I'm not making this up, you know, people actually say this and we know this, right? Now, in the same manner, now there is no problem with your relationship. It might be okay, but the mind now tells you, it's not all right, it seems. That is what craving also does in a similar fashion. Without the craving, it feels as if we do not have that sense of fulfillment there, right? That is what craving does. It is much, much more insidious than sort of seeing a nice dish that you would like to eat and your mouth salivating. Craving is far more insidious than that. Craving is like, you know, it exists within our consciousness and makes us feel as if without it we can't be. Right? That is how craving works. Okay. Now, do we need to go through each and every type of craving? Do we? Clinging to sense pleasures, kama upadana. Kama upadana. This is the clinging to those objects of the world, right? Here, the kama upadana, when we speak about, okay, we want things from the world, so it's kama upadana. What about wanting to get rid of things of the world? Isn't that an upadana? Essentially, upadana must fill. It must saturate the mind. The opposite will never be upadana. Accumulation is the basis of upadana. Right? It will make, now take that same thing, saturation of the mind, and apply that same thing to wrong views. Here, okay, you and I might not know everything about the 62 types of wrong view. We don't really know everything about the 62 types of wrong view. We might be able to go through a deshna or read a book and know the definitions of it, understand a few of them, yes, but we will never know everything about the 62, because we might just not understand what the Buddha is trying to talk about, right? Now, we learn a small thing, and then think that this is it. Saturation of mind. Do you see? That small thing now saturates the mind. Right? That is what upadana is. Do you understand? Right? That is what upadana. It saturates the mind. Now, when the mind is saturated, like a test tube that has been filled to the brim, you can't fit anything else into it. In the same manner, when the sense pleasures have saturated the mind will have no room for anything else. When the wrong views have saturated the mind will not accept anything else. When rites and ceremonies, right, have saturated the mind, now maybe we are the lucky ones. Maybe we've led, or we've been blessed to lead a certain life that has not taken us to the extremes of rites and ceremonies. But let me tell you, some people are daunted by this. They will not do anything without going to the Devalaya, without going to see the Pusali, without going and breaking a coconut on a rock. You know, they will not move without this clarification from the shaman. Sometimes there are people in this world who have gone to, or who work to that extreme with rites and rituals and ceremonies. There are, right? There are. And that's very poorly, right? Then the clinging to the doctrine of self is what essentially keeps us all in this world. But there are some who take it on to a different extreme where they believe everything in the sense of filling the egocentric mind. Taking every aspect of the aggregates, Rupa Vedana, Tanha, Rupa Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, as mine, me, myself, and I. Hence, for example, when kids, sometimes when kids face something bad in school, they take it very personally. Sometimes they're not mature enough to understand, okay, it's not, they're not getting bullied because they are essentially ugly, or they are essentially, it's because, the different kids can be very mean. We say that kids are beautiful, but actually, sometimes kids are so mean, right? But the thing is, children don't have the intelligence or the maturity, rather, to understand that it's not about them. Because they often apply everything that they experience is me, myself, and I for them. Right? We as adults, we have the maturity, the Dhammic understanding to sort of negate that and understand it to a certain area. But we also have that fault, isn't it? If someone says something quite rude to us or something, right? It saturates. You can't think beyond it. That is what Upadana does. E vindina deyama ape chitta santane hadana වෙනවා. ඒ මොහොතේ. ඔතකොට හටගන්න පැවතෙන සියලු ඊට පස්සේ හටගෙන පැවතෙන සියලු චිත්තසංතාන සියල්ලම ඒ අරමුණම විතරයි ගන්න. So you're applying and reapplying and applying and reapplying self. All your equations and formulas for everything that is happening in your life is something to do with self, which it is not. Yeah, which it is not. That is what Upadana is there. Is that understood? Any questions? Yes, Mala.
Kranti, sometimes when you go to Sri Lanka, you see ceremonies like people covering the grounds of Ruanmalisaya with lotus flowers and things like that. They spend a lot of money, and that should come under Silabhata Paramasa, isn't it? It is?
Depends. We can't really say it in that manner. It's not so black. It's not black and white in that manner, in that way. it is only if they are doing it with a sense of ayonsa manasikara, right? Ayonsa manasikara, that it would fall under Silabata Paramasa, right? But there are, for example, it is a very controversial thing to answer, because when we say if we take everything that happens in Ruan Valsay, there are qualifiable things, and then there are absurd things that happen also at Ruan Valsay. So it is very difficult to sort of give one answer to it. But I would say Yonsu Manasikara and Ayonsu Manasikara would be the most healthy standard to guide ourselves by, right? To guide ourselves by. And also, something that I always remind myself is, what would the Buddha say? Right? Would the Buddha say sadhu, 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 or would the Buddha say no? Right? And I'm guessing a lot of the things that we do, it is like,
That's why their way, that is their path to their nirvana, perhaps. They're thinking that way.
yeah, sure. I believe in that as well. But I think when we go to do certain things, Shraddha and sort of Dana has a moral responsibility as well.
Exactly.
Right? And the moral responsibility falls under, now, for example, there are certain things that we can't donate, right? Like human life, weapons, poisons, there are certain things that we can't donate, right? There is a moral aspect of dana, which would then qualify as kusal or akusal, which also should be. So, for example, if certain things, if certain processions take place with corruption, with sort of paying off people and all of these things, then, that is not something to be done.
Yes. I
No?
agree.
It is then not something to be done. And that is something to be understood, especially if you are a Buddhist and you're trying to do certain things. It is like the time when, Sri Lanka was in uproar. I mean, I think even the international Sri Lankan community was in uproar when someone filled up the whole Ruan Valsay with fruits, right? Personally, would I do such a thing? Never.
No.
Would I condone?
Me neither.
Never. I think, we have to sort of come to our senses with regards to pin is very, very important. Merit-making ceremonies are very, very important. It is, I believe, the whole reason that we have the comforts that we have, right? Have the comforts that we have, for example, even with this rice packet thing that we're doing, I mean, it's still going on. And now for 2 months straight, we've been, and I just calculated yesterday, I mean, we've fed 6,000 people for these 2 months. 100 into 60 days, that's 6,000 mouths fed. And that is something that can make you happy. But the thing is, the moral responsibility comes into play. And when we are talking about our practice, it is always important, if it is a practice, හැමදාම භාවනා කරනවා නම් භාවනාව දවසින් දවස හොඳ වෙනවා.
හොඳ වෙනවා. ඕසම්.
හැමදාම සිල් රකින්නවා නම් සීලය දවසින් දවස හොඳ වෙනවා.
හොඳ වෙනවා.
හැමදාම කෑම උයනවා නම්
කෑමත්
කෑම රහ වෙනවා. හැමදාම ධර්මයේ දේශනා කරනවා දවසින් දවස දේශනා හැකියාව හොඳ වෙන්න ඕන.
හොඳ වෙනවා. ඔව් සයින්නහස.
ඔතකොට යම් කිසි දෙයක් අපි කරන ඒ දවසින් කරන එක තව ටික අඩු වෙනවා නම්,
what's the point?
That can't be a progressive Dhamma practice.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, totally agree.
දැන් අවුරුදු 20ක් අපි කටිනම කරනවා නම් එහෙනම් කොතන, where is the progress there? අවුරුදු 20ක් අපි ධම්ම දෙනවා නම් කොතන, where is the progress there? Because kusala, the nature of the kusala mind is it pushes up. If you give 10 people today, you will want to give 12 people next time or 15 people. That is the nature of kusala.
Motivation. Yeah.
Kusala, if you kusala never pushes it down, you will want to do it better. Right? So there has to be progressive improvement along with time. But if you can't see that, then there is something wrong in what your belief system is. And it might not be aligned with what Buddhism is. Yeah. So that is what I personally believe. But I, of course, like Shriyani said, people are in different levels, but people can be in different levels. But sometimes I really honestly feel like some people are just point blank and out of their mind sometimes. It's certain things that they do, and it only makes things worse for us, it only makes things worse for us, meaning it only makes things worse for the Buddhist, progress of Buddhism. Now, Buddhism is sort of seen as modern Buddhism and early Buddhism and all of that. Modern Buddhism is by definition social service. That is not what we are here for. Social service is not what we are trying to do.
Yes.
Right? We are not a bunch of NGO workers, right? We are here to meditate and cultivate our mind. It's not about social service, but social service is part and parcel or lays a foundation of goodwill, but it's not the whole entirety of it, So these are things that we, I think, individually, can take responsibility for, so, yeah. So, all right, moving on.
Bhante, I like to ask this question actually. If somebody offer these unusual offerings to the Dargabber, that comes thinking that by offering you will reach the liberation, then it is actually Silabhata Paramas, and it is explained under bodily knots of adherence to right rituals. Because if somebody is doing this for the purpose of liberation, thinking that this will help you to reach Margapala, then definitely it will constitute the Silabhata Paramas.
Here, let's get the wording correct, right?
Yeah.
There are two. මේ පූජාවෙන් මට නිවන් දකින්න ලැබේවා. මේ පූජාව හේතුවෙන් මට නිවන් දකින්න උපකාර වේවා.
Yeah.
Those two.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that clear?
Yeah. That's the important thing. Yes.
Yeah. Now, the Bodhisattva at one time, the three brothers, after the younger brother who was Gautama Buddha, he offered, they were selling, they had a stall on the road, right? And they were selling honey, bees honey. So then Arahant, the two older brothers, leave the younger brother the stall and they go off somewhere. And then when they get back, they find that a big alms bowl full of honey is gone, and ask the younger brother where the honey went. And the younger brother says, oh, I'm sorry, but, Rahatan Vansanamak Vediya, Rahatan Vansanamak ma puja kara, right? So both the brothers, they were not too happy about it. Not too happy about having given so much of honey to the Rahatan Vahanse. But the eldest one, reprimanded the younger brother, but then he was all right with it. The middle one also reprimanded, but they were all right with it. The younger brother, and they become three of the Buddhas, right? The youngest brother is Gautama Buddha. The middle brother is Mettaya Buddha, and the other brother is going to become a Buddha way after this Chakravala, right? After this Chakravala, right? So you can imagine, the Pratanawa Kina there, right? ඒ මොහොතේ තිබ්බේ යෝනිසමනසිකාරයෙන් පොඩිම සහෝදරයා ගෞතම බුදු වශයෙන් බුදු වුණා. The middle brother becomes right after Gautama Buddha, after the whole sasana collapses, he will become the Buddha. And then the eldest brother, who was quite upset with it, but then came into terms with it, becomes a Buddha right after this world cycle. So you can imagine the power, what that story says is the power of this inspiration. And the Buddha, in certain Bodhisattva birds, he wishes for wealth. He wishes that he may be reborn with wealth, with stores of gold and silver, from which he can perform more danas and propagate, help those who are in suffering, so that it may help him in his journey towards enlightenment. It is the word help, support. මේ දෙය හේතුවෙන් මට නිවන් දකින්න ලැබේවා කිව්වොත් සීලබ්බත පරාමාස. මේ කරන කුසල් කර්මයේ හේතු උපකාරයෙන් මට නිවන් දකින්න ලැබේවා, නිවන් දකින්න උපකාර වේවා කිව්වොත් that is yours once.
Is it a wholesome thing, a wholesome act, if you offer food to an inanimate object?
Bala.
No, these people, they offer fruits and various items to Dagaba.
Yeah.
Do you get any wholesome sort of merits out of it?
Yeah.
So in that case, Buddha statue also the same inanimate, isn't it?
No. Buddha statue is slightly different. You imagine that it's represent Buddha, right?
But that one, the people, they believe that the dhatu is deposited inside the Dagaba. That is why they are saying the Buddha's dhatu is there.
Yeah, but not always everywhere you have Buddha's
question
dhatu.
about the offering food to inanimate objects.
Well, before the statues actually comes to be quite recent compared to how old the Dhamma is. And you can even offer, you can even go to, you can even go to a rock and offer something by taking the object as the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha and gain merit for it.
Yeah.
You know, you can. The statues comes into play as an easier mode of remembrance, as the Agabas are a remembrance of the Eightfold Noble Path and the peerless Dhamma that we try to achieve.
Yes.
Right? It is only an element. We are not offering to the complex. The complex is a reminder of what we are offering to. It's different. We are not offering to the Buddha statue. We are offering to the qualities of the Buddha, which the Buddha statue represents.
Yeah.
With the Buddha statue represents, and the Dagaba represents, and even a rock could represent.
Ante, Dagaba represent the Dhamma. It's it's a Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna.
Yeah.
The base is Sila, and the middle is Samadhi, and the peak is Panya.
Yeah.
So it's actually represent the Dhamma.
Yeah, the Eightfold Noble Path, no?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Noble Path. And so, you know, in Sri Lanka, I remember now, because in Sri Lanka, if you drive, you know, through, you of course, pass a Chaitya somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
And something that my teacher used to say is every time that you pass, you know, you must sort of remind yourself, you know, of what you're working towards, you know.
Yeah.
Is a reminder of the fact that we are trying to attain enlightenment, you know. So, and I remember very well that it was very useful to do that, because every time that you drive past a Buddha statue or a Dagaba, you remind yourself, oh, you know, you worship and you remind yourself, this is what I'm trying to attain, right? So we are not offering to the inanimate object. The inanimate object represents, or rather symbolifies, what we are offering to. Right? So even ගෙදර බුදු පිළිමයක් නැති වුණත් රුවන්වැලිසෑය රුවන්වැලිසෑයට නොගියත් රුවන්වැලිසෑය මතක් කරලා අපිට දෙයක් පූජා කරන්න පුළුවන්. Yeah. And there are stories also in the Jatakas where the Bodhisattva has done the same. Yes. All right. Now, hindrances. The hindrances are so called because they obstruct the way to heavenly rebirth and to the attainment of Nibbana. According to the commentary, the hindrances are mental factors which prevent unarisen wholesome states from arising and which do not allow arisen wholesome states to endure. The first 5 hindrances are the major obstacles to the attainment of the jhanas. The 6th hindrance is the major obstacle to the arising of wisdom. Altogether, 8 chetasikas are included among the hindrances. In 2 cases, however, a pair of mental factors is counted as a single hindrance. The Abhdhamma commentaries explain that sloth and torpor and restlessness and worry are joined into compounds because of the similarities in their respective functions, conditions, and antidotes. Sloth and torpor both have the function of engendering mental sluggishness. They are conditioned by laziness and drowsiness, and they are countered by arousing energy. Restlessness and worry are the function of engendering disquietude. They are conditioned by disturbing thoughts, and they are countered by the development of calm. So the hindrances, I'm sorry, I didn't read that part. 6 hindrances: sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, doubt and ignorance. Sensual desire, kama chanda nivarana, ill will, vyapada nivarana, sloth and torpor, thina midda, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, doubt, ignorance, right? So usually when it comes to us not having the motivation to have a daily practice, usually sloth and torpor, right? Having a daily practice, but still having a restless mind, restlessness and worry, right? Doubt, ignorance. So do I need to explain those further? Do I? Yes, Damsi.
Bhante, can you explain this? Here we have 6 hindrances instead of 5. And can you explain when you, which stage we get rid of or we suppress, right?
Sorry?
That, yeah, which stage when we do meditation,
Yeah.
which now we have, when we reach the dhyana, vitakka vichara, sukha, priti, and ekagata. And what are the corresponding, or do you have one-to-one relationship like kama chanda? Because in some people, they explain that kama chanda will be suppressed when you reach ekagata. Is there any sort of direct relationship? And then similarly, they have Vyapada suppressed with Preeti when you reach the Preeti level. And likewise, do you have a one-to-one relationship with the Dhyanang or the Dhyana level? Have you come across that?
I have not come across it. I have not come across an individual analysis of which hindrances are got rid of by the prospective sort of jhana factor. However, there is a condition of this sort which is explained with the hina, madhyama, and pranita jhanas. Because the hindrances appear within the jhanas as clusters, because these are all supported by the anusayas. Right? So the hindrances arise as a cluster, being supported by the anusaya arise as a cluster. As long as this cluster and the power of the cluster exists, it emphasizes upon the mind's attraction to the hindrances. Right? Or rather than attraction, dependence. Right? Rather than the word attraction, dependence upon the hindrances. The hindrances, we must also know, just like wholesomeness fills, hindrance also fills. Do you understand? Meaning, some people actually, just like wholesome might make you feel whole, the hindrance too at that moment would make you feel something, which at that moment might feel whole. The difference between these two, of course, one is kusala, one is akusala. One is enduring and the other makes you need more. Right? So the only classification that I have come across is in the hina, madhyama, and the pranita, where the jhanas with the hina, the suppression is lesser. And as we progress into the pranita, the suppression becomes far more acute with regards to the hindrances. With regards to the hindrances. Is that all? With regards to personality characteristics, however, there are mentions that a person should follow this sort of jhanic meditation should the person have this sort of a hindrance malignant. That is there. But it does not say that if you, with the rising of vitarka, this reduces, it doesn't say that. Do you understand?
Mante, I'm reading this book. I don't know whether you read this. This is Abhdhamma Pradipika.
Yeah.
And it has got 4 or 5 volumes.
Yeah.
And in that one says, this is unfortunately this is in Sinhala.
Yeah.
Egagata Shaktiya Vadivimen, Dunuvimen, Kamachande, Kramen Durvani. So that's the and then I think I heard similar discussions. I think some Sri Lankan Buddhist monks actually they explain this also. Okay. That's why I was not sure about that. Because the other thing is the doubt I have is actually when you reach the first jhana.
Damsili, this is when they say ekagata, are they referring to the jhana factor ekagata?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're referring to the jhana.
No. It doesn't say, but it says
Ah.
ekagata.
Okay, if we know, then it's different.
Yeah. Okay.
Ekagata as a jhana factor and ekagata as not a jhana factor.
All right. Okay.
Ekagata is samadhi. Samadhiya වැඩිවීමෙන් කාමච්ඡන්ද will be suppressed further. But if it is ekagata jhana factor, I think it is referring to the general ekagata that it is referring to in the jhanic practice. Again,
because when you reach the jhana, you are already, when you reach the first jhana,
yeah.
you have already suppressed the pancha nivarna. Right?
Which jhana? It depends on which jhana.
First jhana I'm talking about, because when it
Not fully.
Not okay.
Not fully. That's why.
No, suppress, not got rid of, the suppressed.
Yes, the suppression.
Yeah.
Increases. The suppress. It is suppressed.
Yeah.
However, the first jhana is prone, because of its level of attention, is prone to be weak.
Okay.
Right? Is prone to be weak. So the strengthening, so in the first jhana itself, we have Vitaka Vichara Piti Sukha Ekagata.
Yeah.
Ekagata refers to the aspect of samadhi, which is also present in all the rest.
Yeah, okay.
However, with the Hina Pranita Majjhima, Hina Majjhima Pranita, and the going on from the first jhana to the fifth jhana, it only becomes stronger and less prone to be disrupted. Right? Less prone to be disrupted. Here, the disruption arises when a arammana is present. This arammana can be taken with a mind of yonis manasikara or ayonis manasikara. It is here that the disruption occurs, not here. So the anusaya, with how it would react to this object that it sees, it only becomes stronger as we go on. So yes, ekagata will suppress that, right? But the ekagata is samadhi. It is like solidifying and holding together the rest of the jhana factors that have been cultivated and developed. Yeah. Any questions, anyone? Damsir, I feel like you want to say something.
Because I was wondering why everyone is silent.
Yeah, I feel like
I think Bante, we have to meditate and see. That's why we all are silent.
Bante, what's the difference between samadhi and the jhana?
Is there a difference between samadhi and
Yeah.
Is there a difference between samadhi and jhana? Yes, there is.
What is
Right?
it?
Depends on what the samadhi is. There is jhana samadhi and vipassana samadhi. Right?
Can you explain, please?
Yes. Jhana samadhi, when we say samadhi, is two types, right? When reference to this, jhana samadhi and vipassana samadhi.
Yeah.
Samadhi will have the ekagata factor predominant, which is the ability to remain within one object whilst there are many objects.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Understand.
So then the object and the result
Yes.
Jhana samadhi or samatha samadhi would come about by a samatha object, while vipassana samadhi is different and it comes about by anicca, dukkha, anatma. Right? Hence, the result and the feel of it is also different.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Right? Now, for example, in a jhana samadhi, now what I mean by the feel of it, the vipassana samadhi is more intuitive,
Intuitive. Yeah.
rather than the samatha samadhi. The samatha samadhi is not all encompassing. It is more tranquility based compared to the vipassana samadhi. Right? It is more tranquility based compared to the vipassana. However, the vipassana samadhi is also allows a person to also now contemplate upon anicca, dukkha, anatma. Hence, the nature of the two samadhis are rather different. Right?
So that means the vipassana samadhi more physical?
No, it does. What do you mean by physical?
Sensation based.
It can be no. It's all about the result, which is the vipassana. Right now, at the moment, how you to really know this, it would be much easier to sort of compare when we would do samatha and even going in and coming out of a samadhi, and then doing a vipassana, going in and coming out of the vipassana. Right? In the vipassana, you observe, and then you're not doing anything. You're not engaging, but you simply observe a phenomena, and the essence of vipassana appears.
Yeah.
In the samatha samadhi, you are with the object and nothing appears.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Right? Hence, the results of these two samadhis can be different. Yeah?
Yeah, I do feel now. Yeah.
Are people like a bit tired? Like, are you still like getting used to 1 hour difference? No, huh?
No, no.
Why is everyone yawning? I see the one who's yawning.
Yeah.
It is interesting,
Just-
very interesting, very wow.
No,
Bhante.
no, Bante, we are thinking deeper and deeper. That's why.
Bhante, now it's actually when it comes to practice. Now, when we under your supervision, we are doing samatha part of it, because we are contemplating on vayu dhatu, which is your in breath and out breath, right? And this is my experience. So we have come to a point, 11th in the 11th stage of this one is sabbakaya patisangvedi assasat sisami sikkati. So when you say sabbakaya patisangvedi, so you experience your body also synchronize with your vayu dhatu, or the main object of your contemplations, right? So because it's a sabbakaya patisangvedi, that means you experience your body also together with,
No.
because this is actually I do experience that one. It has come to a point that I experience synchronizing with the vayu dhatu object.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next one is actually the pasambayang kaya sankara, which is actually the entry to the samatha jhana, right? So when it comes to a situation like that, so you actually you contemplate on your external object as well as together with, synchronized with the body expansion and contraction,
Yes.
right? So that's the sort of that's the technique actually. Probably I am using to reach that level. So in other words, so you are not actually contemplate on the external Vayu Dhatu only, then you contemplate your body expansion also. Am I right?
Yes, but slightly a bit more polishing there, which
Yeah.
is the Vayu Dhatu, because
Yeah.
it is a process of cause and effect.
Yeah.
With the cause and effect in play, something to
Yeah.
know is when you breathe in, that has a reaction.
Yes.
So now it is not the watching of the external breath and the body, it is the watching of cause and the effect.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If we, and that we feel through the body.
Yes.
Because when we see, if we see now, for example, when we are observing the breath arising and passing away, arising and passing away. First, we did this, as you, as I always, right? We did this first.
Yeah.
Then we do this, right?
Yeah.
Then as the observer becomes far removed from the process, the observer, in the beginning, I observed, right? Now, slowly with my letting go improving, the observer is being removed from the process.
Okay.
That process, Damsiri, now brings the breath to a position where when you breathe in, the whole body breathes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yeah.
is like the same thing happens even with Vedananupasana, where the whole body will vibrate and quake.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right? That is when the observer is now being removed.
Okay. Yeah.
And now, almost as if this body is here and you're observing from here.
Yeah.
Right? Now you sort of see and experience that whole thing. But truly, of course, you're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, this process is far more felt and known with the removal.
Yeah.
So now you're growing far more comfortable in that process of letting go and observing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bhante. I couldn't ask this question actually in the meditation because we didn't have chance to discuss it. Thank you very much, because this is a very good advice. Yeah.
Bhante, when you breathe like that, is it you and the breath become one? The whole, and you feel the whole breath and you become a one. Is that possible?
Yes. Yes.
Because when how I feel is my whole self is, my breath is going, even I feel it going to the toes, through the whole, going through the whole body, become one. And is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. However, the moment, it's like, you know, it's kind of difficult to explain, because it is almost like jumping.
Yeah.
jumping a little bit sort of ahead and then sort of jumping a little bit more ahead. And this sort of line is quite subtle, because first you feel as if you're one with the breath, but essentially in the first place you were one with the breath, right? Here, what is basically happening, or what is progressing, is the fact that now you can observe the breath as it happens within the present without engaging. Right? So yes, you feel at one point that you're one with the breath, right? But
then you watch the breath, and then again you get together with the breath.
The one.
Okay.
If we take it as a sentence, I am one with the breath. Remove the one.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
You get it? And see the breath. And when this happens, you truly become with the breath, without the one.
Okay, yes, I know, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right then. So we will.
Bante, thank you for uploading that.
Thank you,
Bhavana.
No problem. All right. So then have a pleasant rest of the night. I will see you. I don't know whether I will have the sutra this time. Probably not, because the times are a little bit getting a bit, difficult, to be very honest now with 12:30. But I will update the group. All right. Take care and goodbye. Teron Sannai.
Teron Sannai.